So you're looking at an audience where mostly the members of the jury, especially, are also looking for meaning, for a message, for something that rings a bell with the audience. Let's imagine if we take a completely different audience, let's imagine you need to do a speech or a keynote for a group of middle schoolers. Well, if you talk about the hardship of being a parent, they are going to zone out because that is something they're not even thinking about. Vice versa, if you're going to do deliver a speech or keynote for a business audience, and all you talk about is maybe counterculture, subculture, and the likes, you're also going to miss. So you must make sure that you are aware of your audience and that you engage with the audience that you have in front of you. So that's what you get points for. But let's not talk too much about the theory, right? Let's dive right in. Ian, so we will give you this afterwards. But if you want to become a table topics master, sorry, no, it's okay. Okay. I think. Yeah. This person is a table topics master. Does anybody recognize him? This is from a long time ago, when all of continental Europe was one group, and we had contests with everybody from the north of Sweden to the south of Portugal, from the east of Romania to the west of the French coast, Bretagne. And this gentleman is from Romania, Toastmasters, Ovidiu Oltan. And at that point in time, he won the table topics contest. Now, we want you to work. We're going to show you the video. And while showing the video, you don't need to take notes. You can take notes if you want to, but we want you to observe from a judge's point of view why you think he won. We're not showing you the others, so you don't know if the others were worse or better. We're just looking at this speech, and we're trying to find out if you can spot the ingredients that makes this a winning table topic. Let's first pray for technology to work. Technology is not fast.
Is it a link that opens?
It's a link that opens. So
can the online audience see the link?
Online audience, can you see link on a YouTube link? It is now black coming up.
Don't forget to share.
Reminder.
Maybe it's better to share the link because they might not hear it.
We'll share sound. We can share sound.
Good thing.
Can you share sound
Down there.
Get this.
Perfect.
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe was born in Frankfurt. He said, "Living dangerously is the only way to live." Johann Wolfgang von Goethe was born in Frankfurt. He said, "Living dangerously is the only way to live." Ovidiu Oltan.
Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, dear friends, what does danger mean to you? Does it mean having courage and facing all odds when there is no fear? No. Courage is when all the odds are against you and you take that step forward. How can you live dangerously? From my perspective, living dangerously means letting go of life. How many of you have ever played Monopoly? Congratulations. How do you play Monopoly? You get cash, you have to pay rent, you buy a house, you go to jail. You have free parking sometimes. Sometimes you have to pay your rent. But everything is played under an atmosphere of relaxation and amusement. How do we live our lives? We pay rent, we buy a house, sometimes we go to jail, sometimes we have free parking, sometimes we take money. The thing is, the difference is that we don't live our lives in an atmosphere of relaxation and amusement. We live our lives so stressed, so intoxicated with all the stress that we have. And that is why we live dangerously. And that's why we are not willing to be the one who's conducting the monopoly, but we want to be that small little piece that moves from stone to stone, from corner to corner. And we never take the risk to let go and see the board game from behind, to be an observer. We never take that risk to live a dangerous life from the first perspective, but a life that will give you all that you wanted. Live dangerously, let go of your life. Thank you.
What did you think?
Outstanding.
What did he do well? What are the elements you picked up that made this speech such a good speech? If you had to break it down, like a couple of nuggets here.
Three things.
Okay.
The technique was outstanding, so body language, vocal variety, and so on. But I think that what he did well was that he was involving the audience a lot. And because of that, he managed to keep the attention very high. And the structure was really superior, I would say. Everything was really well connected and was building on a nice story.
Anything else? Yes.
I found the idea of using monopoly, the things that we do normally and relating to our life and linking to living dangerously was amazing. In that one, I don't know, 1.5 minutes, he gave a big philosophy in like a small bullet.
So he compared life to Monopoly. A figure of speech here that we're looking for is a simile or the analogy, a four-line metaphor, but he said like, so yes, that was really well, that was a very powerful one. What else?
There was a message.
The message was strong and clear.
Anything else?
Someone from online?
Yes. Yes, of course. Ivan.
Yes, I like he used Monopoly as an example because a lot of people probably played Monopoly, so it's a very easy idea to digest. And the fact that he can make a joke out of getting into jail, I think that makes the story a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. So the humor also.
Humor was
Yeah.
also very powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, a very strong conclusion, very strong.
Very strong. Yes. Strong conclusion.
There was repetition.
Repetition
In the beginning.
in his structure and in his lines. So the message, the wording that he was using. So he used that as an element of structure. Yeah. Very good. Did anybody notice, and this is for the advanced people, did anybody notice any tricks that he used?
With your hand.
Raise your hands, yes. It's a psychological trick. If you raise your hand on
Yeah.
stage, everybody in the audience will mimic you. It's a cheap trick, but it always works. And in a table topics context, you can do it, right?
I feel it's more natural to do it. I never thought about it as a trick. I would, if I'm being in my elements, I would use my body automatically along with my speech.
Yeah, and that's basic human behavior. We like to emulate our audience just the same way that the audience likes to emulate us. So that's perfectly fine. It gives you points on engagement with audience. It's good.
The way he did the joke in the jail, When you move
Yes.
to a specific part of the stage at the beginning,
Yeah.
when you were speaking about Monopoly, he did a specific gesture, moving in a specific way, and then
Yeah.
you wait.
Yes, I wouldn't call it a trick. What I meant with tricks was devious behavior that can serve you to win a table topics contest. There's a big one.
Maybe introducing to all the people, like at the beginning, say hello.
No, that's all fine.
What was the
He started twice. He came up with the Monopoly idea about 30 seconds, no, maybe not 30, but about 10, 12 seconds into his speech. He started differently, and then he had a brain flash that said Monopoly. Great, I'll do that. And nobody noticed, right? Because he started differently, and then he had this idea of Monopoly, and then he went with the Monopoly idea. So that's really good. So that also tells you that when you start in table topics, the most important thing that you have to do as a contestant when you're on stage is to start, right? Otherwise, you're not competing. You have to start, but there is a bit of grace. You know, if you make a false start and you get a better idea in the first 10 seconds, the chances are nobody is ever going to notice, right? But he was off to a different start. So if you watch this again at home, look at it. In the beginning, he's off to a different start. But it's okay, because he's very smooth in his delivery. And he goes with the Monopoly metaphor so over the top, right? With first, showing it as the game and then showing it as the metaphor for life, that everybody buys it and they have forgotten about those first 10, 12 seconds.
Just notice that both of his starts were with a question.
Yes, very good, very well spotted. Yes, he starts twice with a question. That does two things. It makes sure that you can engage with the audience. Questions are always good for engaging with the audience. And you have the choice between a rhetorical question where you're not even waiting for them to reply, or a real question where you want them to raise a hand or to nod or to say yes or something like that. So it's a great way to engage with the audience. And the jury, the judges, are also audience members. So it's a great way to engage with the judges. The judges are anonymous. You do not know them beforehand. But if you can ask a question like that, that also involves the judges as part of the audience, then of course they will give you more points. They're
Yeah.
human.
The added benefit of asking this rhetorical question is it buys you a little bit of time to think about where you're going with that story. And from the audience's perspective, that is a pregnant pause, as we call it. It's a show of like you're in control of your speech and of the room. So it actually gives you more gravitas than, don't panic. If you have a pause, this is good. It's good for your audience, it's good for your judges, and it's also good for you to gather your thoughts and kind of see where you're heading with that. You mentioned the storytelling. So those are the things that we've observed. I want to add something. Go ahead, please, real quickly.
I felt he was really like connecting, talking eye to eye with people. Like he was really strong.
Yeah, the camera position was perfect. I mean, we don't know what it felt like to
Yeah.
really be in the room, right?
But I can believe that he
Look
was
at
The
making eye
energy
contact.
that he portrayed was
Yes.
so direct.
Certainly.
It was like
Yeah.
addressing the people. I
Yeah.
would say the energy was different.
Yeah, exactly. The energy that he brought, and it wasn't overly done, and it wasn't too soft. It was, for me, just right. It was engaging without being too much. This is kind of what we've observed. I want to actually also ask you what was not there, which was perhaps good. What did you not spot in this speech? Now, the Toastmasters, we have those objective evaluations at the end. What did you not see in his speech?
I didn't see a single stumble. He didn't say, he didn't repeat himself.
From a
It was as if he had written it.
You loved that, don't you, Christopher? Christopher is our finicky, and he's right about that counter. Yeah, there were no.
There was one.
One small,
Yeah.
very small one. But that makes him all the more human, right? Because pretty soon we're going to have to compete against AI. And so an R can make the difference between, okay, it's a real human, or it's a bot, it's a bot.
Okay.
Exactly.
So pretty soon we're going to be counting the R's as a good thing. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly, there were no
No hesitation.
hesitations, no false starts, no staring in the wall blanks. So he was really in control of his audience, of his message, of his speech, and of his contest.
Other things? Anything else?
It felt like a prepared speech.
Yeah. Yes. This man competes since years, and even before that he was competing, and also in the prepared speech. So he's well versed. It takes years of practice, right? And that's what we're here for. We're going to practice also. And when today is over, you're going to continue to practice. You're going to practice, practice, practice until you're as good as this, right? In your own style. You will not copy him. Nobody will do the Monopoly thing. Maybe. But in your own style, everybody can become this good, right? And as a little anecdote aside, I did much thinking, and I think Frankfurt was 2014, and I was there and I was competing, and I didn't even make it to the finals. I was in the semifinals. I was disqualified in the semifinals, right? 3 years later, I won table topics in German, the most difficult language on the planet. So it's possible. Everything is possible. But let's make it possible. Let's see what you can do right here in terms of how do you work on those 3 elements of the judge's sheet. How can you improve those 3 elements? Remember the purpose, the structure, and then sprinkles and sparkles. So we've renamed it a little bit for our purposes. We're not using the, let's say, the neutral language that Toastmasters is using on the judge's ballot, but this is what it's all about, right? You have to have a purpose. The questions, table topics questions, usually lend themselves for a beautiful message. There are many questions that are halfway philosophical, that are about the shape and colors of life, that are about personal things. So typically, a table topics question will lend itself for a purposeful miniature speech with a nice message. And even if you don't think that the question is very appropriate or fits to you, you can still do things with that. And we'll come to that in a minute. So the purpose is the idea that you have. So the originality of your idea will be, of course, compared with the other speakers. Your call to action, if there is a call to action or a message, it will give you extra points. And the inspiration. We saw it just this minute ago. The man had brain flash. Monopoly came into his brain for, maybe he played Monopoly the night before, right? Maybe he lost in Monopoly when he was a child. Right? It came to him. We all have our own experience that brings us brain flashes like that. Go with them, right? We have the structure, and we're going to go into that also as well. And then sprinkles and sparkles. And we have to admit one thing here, Mikaela, are we going to tell them? It sounds so much better in French. It does. In French, it's frou-frou et tralala. So if you want to learn some French tonight, remember this, frou-frou et tralala. It will make you win table topics contests. And with that, let's talk a little bit about different elements that can give purpose to your speech. We're going to start in ancient Greece. About 8,000 years ago, there were many philosophers, and one of them came up with this book around rhetoric. Socrates wrote his book around rhetoric, and he talked about the 3 elements of rhetoric: ethos, pathos, and logos. And these are the elements of the content, but also elements that the speaker, so qualities of the speaker. Does anybody know any ancient Greek for translation? Who has heard of ethos, pathos, logos? Who has heard of Socrates? Okay, a few people. Who can explain what ethos is about?
Was it the credibility?
It is credibility. Thank you, Isil. So someone was paying attention in previous meetings of Toastmasters. No, I'm kidding. So ethos is, yes, what we call in English usually credibility. Also authenticity is a part of that. It is, if you would put it shortly, why is this person talking about this topic? The more person and topic fit together, the higher your ethos will be, right? It's a little bit like the difference between an intern presenting a project or a director presenting a project, right? The more experience you have, the more knowledge you have about something, the higher your credibility will be. So it is important Not necessarily for all types of speeches, but definitely in business, this can be very helpful. Okay? Pathos, what is that about? There are English words that begin, that sound like it.
Passion or
Passion,
I saw them.
empathy, yes. So pathos is the emotion, right? So an English word that comes from pathos is pathetic, for example. But pathos is the emotion that you bring. So pathos is looking at how involved a speaker is emotionally. So it is, you could say, it is your passion. The more energy, the more passion you show, the more aligned you are in terms of on an emotional level with your message, the more also you bring some personal anecdotes, right? And you can also work on the pathos by playing with the audience. For example, if you ask the audience a question, who has ever? Do you agree? These are things where the audience feels emotionally connected. So that adds to your pathos. And that is usually something that works really well in table topics contests. Because the ethos, you never know what the topic is about. If you happen to get a topic that is also your line of business, okay, then you can use that. Or if it's something that you recently read a book about and you can quote from the book, okay. But pathos is something that, independent of the topic, you can always use. And also in the example that we saw before, how you make your message so that your message is like a present for the audience. That is also pathos, right? So you give it as a gift, not as I am the teacher and I am telling you, but more as wouldn't we all, as a group here, as society at large, be better off if we, right? If you formulate it a little bit like that, that adds to your pathos. Logos, that is very simply the words that you use. Logic is comes from the same root, so it is how you develop your message. Is it logical inherently? Do you use elements that say, okay, firstly, secondly, thirdly, for example, things that build on top of each other? If you talk about something which is a bit more dry or more academic in nature, can you add references? Can you tell why you're coming to this conclusion? So it's your argument, right? Also, again, in a short table topic of 1 to 2 minutes, the judges are not going to pay that much attention to you really bringing academic proof of your message, but the inherent logic of your development and how well your message fits to the examples that you've given in the course of your minute speech will add, of course, to the logos. At the same time, you have 1 to 2 minutes. Even in a 5 to 7 minute speech, and I would say even in a keynote or lecture, the audience is better off when you keep it simple. So that means do not try to mix 3 or 4 ideas. It's not going to work. Go with one idea. Once you've decided what you're going to do with the table topic, with the topic that you've been given, go with that. Even if afterwards you sit down and think, oh, I should have. No. You're always going to think that. That's normal. But just go with one idea. And once you have established what it is that you're going to develop on that. Do not begin to sidetrack, right? So keep it sweet and simple. What you can do, of course, is you can play with the message, with the question. Was anybody here last week at Munich Prostmasters? Online, we had a few. Do you remember the table topics? Our table topics master was Tobias Schlosser, and he had quotes, right? Do you remember the first quote and what Ranjit did with it? Yes, Ashwini. So the quote was, or the saying, the expression was, this horse will not eat cucumber salad. And Ranjit came on stage and he elevated the message by starting to talk about a new juice diet that he's doing, telling us, sharing with us how he never thought that he was going to be able to eat so much vegetables in one day. And in the end, he brought it back to the horse. So somehow he made the message talking about, if I can start eating vegetables like this, the horse can start eating cucumber salad. It's a nonsensical message, but it fit really well because he managed to take a topic which was very hard to deal with because you don't know where the expression comes from, you don't know where to go with it. He talked about the juice diet, gave us a message about healthy living, and then brought the horse back in at the end. So he took the challenge and he delivered. Now, you can also turn the question around. And I know Mikaela always wants to take my example, but I will take my example because sometimes I'm good. A few years ago, in 2017, I was in the table topics contest in German, and at the division level, so that's 2 after the club, the question was, if I want to get creative, if I want to get creative, and I turned it around by talking about, if I stated, if I want to get creative, I do nothing. And then I elaborated on the powers of procrastination and how we often get our best ideas when we are doing nothing or nothing productive, when we take a shower, when we go for a run, for a walk, stare out the window. And at the end, I summarized, or I stated my message in saying, when I do nothing, I get creative, right? So it's just turning it around, fitting it to my purpose, because to be really honest, when that question came to me, if I want to get creative, I had no idea, what do I do to get creative? And so we turn it around. And then, of course, a call to action. A call to action is a message on speed. Basically, this is when you give a message to the audience, but you also tell the audience, or you request, you ask the audience to start changing something, start doing something, stop doing something, or a thing like that. And it works very well when we say, for example, instead of saying the message, healthy living can improve us all, you could make a call to action and say, live more healthily, start tomorrow. You can simply phrase most any type of message into a call to action. So that is how you can work on the purpose of your table topic. Let's practice. And now it goes twice. Okay, so it's we have a few examples of table topics. And as usual, we need the volunteers. And for this part of the show, we have a timer. Divish, thank you very much. You know the functioning of the lights. After 1 minute, he will show green. After 1.5 minutes, he will show yellow. And after 2 minutes, he will show red. Ready, set, go. Who wants to try? Don't tell me that you're scared now. Go on, Jason. Right, left.
I'm not going to remember any of that stuff on the slide.
Which one do you want?
Take the right one.
Right for you?
Right,
Yes.
yes.
Jason, nothing changes if nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Jason.
Nothing ever changes, is what we all think, right? Who feels their life is the same day in, day out? You're always doing the same thing. You go to the same job. Nobody has that feeling. You guys must have amazing lives. Okay, I'm an office worker, and I spent a lot of my life working in an office, which means you get up at 8 o'clock, you get to the office at 9 o'clock, you work, you have lunch, you work, you leave at 5. And you do that and repeat that for years and years and years. And then one day you're sitting at home thinking to yourself, nothing ever changes. But that was years ago. And I'm not working in that office anymore. Now I'm at Toastmasters, giving a table topic speech. I've met loads of exciting new people. I will be going skiing next week. I've been on many vacations. So obviously my perception that nothing ever changes is wrong, because everything has changed since then. And I didn't notice. It just happened. Change happens all the time, every day, every minute, every second. And if we don't pay attention, we miss it. So nothing ever changes is wrong. Be present in your moment, because present is called present because it's a gift. Things change all the time.
Do we want to give the feedback?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Definitely.
Who would like to give a short piece of feedback to Jason? Ms. Davidson. Yes.
I think it's brilliant that you're talking, and then you had a message. Change is constant. And I think it's really brilliant that I felt that in the beginning you felt a bit unsure, where is it going? It's your office workout. I like that you had nice body language. I could see you a bit nervous. It's okay for me. So I was also happy to see it's also okay for you. You accepted it. It's not nice development in the story, and having a message is the most important thing for me. So I enjoyed it. Thank you. Well done.
Anybody else? Yes.
I think it's a perfect example showing us how to do the table topic. When we got the message like that, probably we have like a complete blank brain, like thinking, what the hell is this thing? What am I going to talk about? But as you can see, he started first with an interesting, like according to the punkt here, he actually interact with us. He caught our attention, right? We feel like a related little joke broke the ice, and then we started to follow the thing. And exactly those moments, he got also thinking what we call in English, like we think by foot or whatever. Think on your feet. And then the message finally you got it, like, yeah, this is a shitty sentence. Everything is changing, and this is powerful. And I think after 30 seconds, you got this idea, and so you started to go that direction. I think it's a perfect example for us you think on your feet, and you got and actually you did it very good, presenting, using all the example related to people, and then conclusion, strong, powerful, cool. I think that's a good example.
Yes, sure.
How many years have you been in those processes? 3. 3, right?
Really?
So it's amazing how you connected the sentence to Toastmasters. I think that is where it caught my attention. I'm like, nothing changes, but when you join Toastmasters, something changed. And from there, you brought up to that everything is changing. So I think I like. But if I were to speak on the same topic, my thought goes not to Toastmasters, but to sports. Because in sports, that is used quite a lot to push people to go for a run or go to the gym. So it's also interesting to see how different people come up with a different direction.
Yeah, we're polluted when you're in the Toastmaster long enough. Where we think about Toastmaster, how we change because of Toastmaster.
Yes, Jason.
Just because exactly right, as everybody said, I had no idea in the beginning, like nothing ever changes, complete blank. The thing that saved me was your preparation in the video, that you can start twice. And that saved me.
With plenty more good
Yes.
I want to add a couple of sorry, any more? Yes.
Yeah, there was a beautiful save because the audience were like, no, we are not like that. I love that the way you took it. I love that.
Yeah, you bounced off really well on that kind of moment. There was no answer. Where am I going with this? Sorry, go ahead, Jojo.
I played with that guy.
Yes.
Because everybody told you so many things, but I know that you want to improve. I think you had the chance to use the stage a lot in this. And you also brought automatically the right topics to do that. Like that also, because I know you can do it. Thank you. I had exactly that one.
So in the register of things he could do even better in his speech, in a motivating, supportive Toastmaster way of giving feedback, he could have used the stage space a little bit more to support his point. But speaking of that point, I want to highlight how well you had this logos thing. I mean, you had a red thread, even though you had no idea where you were going with this. You did build a bit of a story there, and we were following your logic, so to speak, so I could follow the story. I'm quite sensitive to the whole figures of speech, and you had a beautiful triad that supported your storytelling when you said the years and years and years, which by the way also bought him time to think, where am I going with this next? I know that. And good contrast, you know, from nothing to everything. So that's also quite powerful when you do table topics. He had a really good so storytelling I mentioned, but the conclusion, you managed to bring the message back home in the end and do a proper conclusion and close your message and end with that emphasized message and a call to action as a bonus. I mean, come on. Well done. Round of applause for Jason.
Also, before being the first one up here, which is courageous, not to say the least, I think I'll do one more.
Yes,
and then,
yes,
we'll do one more. So yes, please come. And the people online, I promise I'll watch you. If you raise your hand, you can also participate, of course.
Or because we don't see all the members online, so maybe
they have to have their camera on, otherwise we can't help them. So left or right?
Anything. I should choose left.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I understand that.
Hang on. Your name is
Suja.
Suja. Okay. Suja, what does your bookshelf say about you? What does your bookshelf say about you, Suja?
What does my bookshelf say about me? Just that if someone comes into a room and tries to figure out, looking into my bookshelves, not one, but many, I just have a solution that they don't figure out who I am, I think, because you can find all kind of subjects from philosophy to psychology to running, triathlon, climbing, whatever. And a lot of books. I have Easter's book with me on my shelf, and a lot of novels. So I read a lot of fiction and non-fiction. I'm basically learning about everything, and from everything. I find my inspiration comes from anywhere. Some people sharing their story, some people writing about their experience, going from one place to another, giving a lot of to-dos and lists of strategies, how best to speak or to do business, and a lot of different approaches. What does it tell me? I'm a person with no idea what to do with anything. I have no idea about anything. No, it just says I'm like a cup who is willing to be empty so that it can be filled with information and live a good life. So my idea to get inspired is life is everywhere. I want to make the best out of it. My mission for myself is to be the best version of myself. That means I can stretch in 360 degrees all over in multiple dimensions, not just three more. So that's what I feel my bookshelf will reveal about me. But don't go by the what you see in the shelf. Make your own connection with me and learn about me. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody want to start with a bit of feedback for Suja? Who would like to start?
What was the question again?
What does my bookshelf tell about me?
About me.
So about her. What does her bookshelf tell about her? Yes.
I think I really liked the message in the end. It was very powerful. She's like, don't look at my bookshelf because there are so many different subjects. Just talk to me if you want to know about me. So I think that just stood out like really from the whole talk. So
And it's a bit of a twist, right?
Yeah, it is a twist.
Yeah.
Because you could have argued the positive, like the bookshelf does tell all about me, but on the contrary, don't judge me on my bookshelf. So I thought it was a nice twist
was a nice
that you
twist.
brought in
Don't
there.
judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
Don't judge a person by its symptoms.
And the metaphor was great.
Any other feedback? Yes.
Well, I also think that mission accomplished. You covered the question, you had the message, and it's a tricky, colorful, nice message you had, and the way you developed it. I also like your energy, the way you describe and tell and use your body language made me smile for 2 minutes. I was smiling. On the other side, I could imagine that you have spoken a bit too fast for some people. So it's always recommended to slow down a bit.
Yes. I think Christopher also wants to give some feedback. Yes.
Just two things. I felt the opening was strong. A very time-honored technique is to restate the question. You repeated the question, that works quite well. And then your ending was very strong as well. So I like the opening and the ending particularly, they really struck me.
Yes. Giorgio?
I really appreciated your voice and the way you were projecting it around the room. You were always looking at different people. You were very loud. I think that was powerful.
On that note, however, the audience online has lost you because you moved behind the camera.
Yeah.
So I don't know how important the audience online is to you. But just, stay.
Yeah, I was.
Kelly.
May I say something? So on stage, sometimes there's a theory on stage. So when we are performing, we never use our back facing the audience. That's taboo. Like unless you're performing on purpose. But maybe it's because of this venue, or I think it's because of anxious. Like when we're nervous, we started to get closer and closer, and we don't know how close we are. And actually, when you're talking, you are there. So I see your sexy back, but I don't think it's a good thing to do when you're on stage. You shouldn't turn your back like this. You're always facing the people. That's why when we're standing like two people, we stand always like 45 degrees. We can receive the maximum audience. And that's probably the same thing with the online audience, because you left them, you abandoned us. No, but I will talk to you directly, without the bookshop. That's the only thing I want to mention about the stage usage.
Yeah. I will add that your superpower is really the gesture. So you're really good with your body language. So use that, continue to use that. It's it's really good in supporting the message.
And I noticed something very special also. You talk about how your bookshelf is very eclectic, and the development of your speech was quite eclectic also. Nevertheless, you had this very strong opening and closing, as Christopher mentioned, so it all came together in the end. But your speech was a little bit like your bookshelf also. So for me, that felt like, okay, she's demonstrating, what she wants to make us feel. And that goes back once again to the pathos, right? So yes, the words that you use are important, but it's also very important that you have this connection with the audience and that you can make the audience feel what you want to say by really demonstrating it. So that was extra points that we didn't talk about yet. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I add one tiny detail related to that and related to what Daria was saying. Yes, at some points, some parts you were talking a little bit fast, but that could be part of your purpose. You can go really fast in giving us numbers and lists of all the topics that you read, and oh my God, and we feel dizzy hearing all of that. And then you pause, and then you slow down and you come to your message about this is not who you really are, etc. So like use that contrast, because that vocal variety will serve you well.
And with that, we will go to the structure.
All right, we're warming up and shifting gears, and we're shifting to the second foot of that stool, which gives your table topic speech such stability and such memorability. Structure. So, okay, spoiler alert, they're all up there, but they're not, they're a little bit coded. Toastmasters may have known them and recognized some of them. What are structures that you can bring into a table topic speech? What are some examples of how you can structure your message? Come on.
It's written.
I know, but they're not all clear to you. Okay, the first one is easy. 1, 2, 3, right? So question, what's so great about living in Munich? Well, I like the beer gardens, I like all the parks, and I like the people. That's a simple 1, 2, 3, and then rip up and go. What do we mean by the plus, 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 and the minus, 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 minus?
But you start the normal get positive and more positive. When you start
Escalation.
The crescendo, yeah, it's basically the good, better, best structure. So what I like about Munich are the parks, but I like the people even more. What I really like the most about Munich is how the life quality is just amazing, and vice versa, the worst. Because I had once at a Prostmaster meeting, like, what was the worst gift you ever had? You could also go into that direction with the, oh, I got a really bad gift one day from my uncle, but an even worse gift was this one. But the absolute worst was the one I got from my grandfather.
I thought you were gonna say husband.
He's not in the room.
Who's gonna say husband?
No.
Past, present, future, an easy one. So often you have questions about where do you see yourself in 10 years, or what is the meaning of life? That's a classical one. What is the meaning of life? You know, ask Siri, she'll give you some funny answers. But in a Toastmaster context, you can say, well, when I was a child, I thought the meaning of life was about collecting Legos. Today, I think it's more about finding a good life balance and being happy with what I have. I believe that in the future, I will be more about giving back to others. So try to structure that around that. And you have your judges and your audience following you in that storytelling and in that speech. Anybody familiar with the STAR acronym, STARR? It's a technique that we usually recommend candidates to use in interviews. When in an interview, an interviewer will ask you, so tell me about yourself, or tell me about a difficult situation that you've had to face and what came out of that. You'll start with the situation, that's the first S. What was the situation? So I started this new job in the new team, and you describe the initial situation. What was the task? Well, you had to do this and that. Or what was the challenge? You know, well, we lost one of our big suppliers, or there was a big crisis. A, what was the action you took to fix that problem? And then R, important, was the result around that action that you took. And I like particularly the final R, which is the reflection. In hindsight, I think we could have done a little bit more about client relationship management. That could have prevented the situation, et cetera, et cetera. See where we're going with that? So that can sometimes work as well for a table topic structure. Any questions so far on the possible structures? There have been speeches I've seen where none of these were used and where simply storytelling was used. So used as well to just at least bring the audience along in the story.
I have a question.
Please.
In the previous contest, has anyone ever used like a reverse chronology? For example, you tell the end of the story first, for example, I won $1 million, and then you explain how that story review.
I don't see why not. I mean,
I don't recall any examples.
Would that have like a different effect on for like table topic?
Well, you're planting an element of curiosity, right? I mean, you're starting with a spoiler, you're starting with the end of the story, and you're working a little bit like, you know, the movie The Hangover, where you see the last situation and you kind of backtrack, flashback all the time, trying to recap how did these people get to that situation. That's one way to do it. And especially if you add an element of humor and so on. 2 minutes is a very short amount of time to develop this technique. So you got to really be confident about where you're going with that. Another thing I will add, and we'll mention this, of course, at the end, it's not just about how good your speech is. There's an analogy which I like to use for contests that it's like being chased by a bear. You just don't want to be the last one running. You just want to be faster than all the other guys. So yours can be good, yours can be great, or it can be really awful, but you know, you just want to make sure that you're not the last one, kind of thing. So you just have to be better than the competition. And you don't usually know what your competition did. Well, it depends what is your order of appearance, because of course in the table topic contests, there's an order of appearance, and if you're first, you get to listen to everybody behind you, but second, third, etc., don't get to hear the speeches before you. That would be too easy. Yes, you should.
In the Toastmasters, one of the tracks, there was the suggestion that you collect all your personal stories. And then, because this is something that you know, so whenever a topic comes that connects to a personal story, then you are safe. You don't have to think about structures. You can think, how is this relevant to my audience?
Completely.
So the message has to be thought while you're on stage, but collecting your repertoire of stories, I guess, would be very powerful, with maybe playing also first, last, between, when you know what you want to talk about.
Thanks for raising that point, because it brings me to another point I wanted to really emphasize. Yes, it's an impromptu speech. However, there is such a thing as preparation. For example, when you prepare to go for an interview, you know that you're likely to get the question, tell us about a difficult situation. Prepare a few different situations, a few different stories that illustrates that difficult situation. And depending on the mood, the audience, the interviewer, pick the one that is the most appropriate. The same thing would be true for the table topics. Think or park a few of those memorable situations in your life, which are either very funny or very pathetic or very sad, that could really get you to connect with that audience. So that you can just, like, you know, like a bookshelf or like a chest of drawer, just pluck out the right story. And by the way, the right quotation or the right example at the right time. Questions? Or should we just go right into the examples? Who's our next volunteer?
Somebody raised their hand in the online audience.
Oh, somebody raised their hand, sorry. Anubha?
Hi. Yeah, but I think question has been answered. The question has been asked in the previous question. It was the same. How to you were basically discussing tabletop topics, right? How to be more impactful here. But in general, if I bring this to a presentation mode, that means I'm presenting something to the client. In that case, I think, is this effectful when we bring the climax at the beginning, saying, okay, this is what you are getting, and then we begin with the storytelling, as been said.
What you are mentioning is reminding me of a strategy in communication that we sometimes talk about for executive presentations, which is the pyramid principle. The pyramid principle is when you start with the key takeaway first, and then you dive into the details about, you know, the how, the what, and etc.
Yes, the 3 whys, yeah.
That as well. But you can start with that and then elaborate, you know, our product is the best on the market, and we will show you why. Number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. You know. Does that kind of answer or go in the direction of what you were looking for?
Yes. So basically that impacts, right? So in those directions, but here tabletop, it's like you mentioned, it's other way around.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Once you feel comfortable with it, you can use alternative structures also. It just, at the end, your goal is to make sense and to trust the judges.
When the heads of your audience. Right, exercise, practice time. Who's next? Somebody on the...
Okay.
Are the red table topics harder than the green table topics?
No, they're just a different color.
No, they're just color coded for us too, actually.
It's even the same handwriting.
Daria, come on. This is the real contest topic we had in this club. What inspires you the most, Daria? Daria, what inspires you the most?
Fellow Toastmasters, Mikaela. The answer to this question is very simple. people inspire me. I realized that there are so many amazing, wonderful people in this world. And I met a lot of those people. I think when you start thinking positively, when you start admire people, you also attract those people in your life. Last year, I had a difficult stage in my life. I had a surgery, and probably people who inspire me less are the surgeons because they don't really care about you. They do everything and then they say bye, and then person goes home and realizes, oh my God, I'm not able to do anything by myself. So when this happened to me, I didn't even have to ask for help. People just told me, can I come over? And when people came over and told me stories, had coffee with me, took me for a walk, I couldn't go anywhere by myself, but I always had company. And suddenly people felt that they can share stories with me, and the stories I've heard inspired me. And despite the fact that a lot of bad things are happening, for example, I'm from Ukraine, and it's a very horrible situation, and people do bad things. But still, I see that there is so much kindness, humanity, and love in people. People inspire me the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daria. Feedback, what did you think? What was good?
Nothing.
No,
No. I would like to say something.
Kelly will
It's very good structure, I have to say. It's a lovely story. You use your personal story, and actually I was brought to your story. And then you told, so I think the structure is quite clear. You make an example. You make the opening like these people inspire me the most, and then explain everything and then brought us there. And then you conclude with the same thing. I think that's a perfect structure also.
Georgia.
We mentioned something before, those parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were very brave of bringing a few topics like Ukraine and these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking in general about people. Because even if there are a few subjects, I think, that are very emotional, even if you don't put a lot of energy or you don't make very, very good techniques, and you don't have to say anything. You just have to bring them to the table and you have emotions. On top of that, you were speaking very good, very well. I think that was very positive.
Thank you. Yes.
You had a principle for keeping it simple, not too many topics. And I think put too many topics into it. So you have the surgery example, and then you have the Ukraine, and then you didn't know what to do with it because it's a huge topic, right? And then you switch back again, and I think that was a bit too much for that time.
Although I also saw a bit of a story arc there, right?
Yeah.
She started with the people, and then she brought the personal story, and then the Ukraine thing. So there was a bit of a flow. There was a flow to it, and I think she managed to culminate with this inspiring message at the end. It's like what inspires you really the most in the end. So you really had a build up towards that. I think that was effective. Yes.
I saw somehow a little bit differently. I don't know. I think she did an amazing thing by leveraging her story to go to a big topic, which is Ukraine, right? I would have liked if when you shared the vulnerable part about yourself, you could have used some emotion, some expression that would have connected us better. And second, maybe could have spent a few more seconds on the Ukraine topic. So when you were leveraging your story to Ukraine, you could do that more smoothly. But I enjoyed the
Divesh, you were the timer. Did she have a few seconds?
That's what I'm saying.
She had a few seconds.
She had, I think, another 30, 40 seconds.
Yeah, I also go in the line of appreciating the build-up kind of way that you brought this story. It is all personal story, even if it is Ukraine. You're from Ukraine, so it is your personal story. But it has an additional attachment to it because of all the other things related to it. I find that it got me even more present to your story when you mentioned it. I think it takes courage to bring such topics also in it, in the speech. And I like that. I appreciate that.
I think
Yeah,
you're super, yes.
a question. Both Jason and I think also you did something that I noticed. If I remember well, you said something about the surgeons, that they don't care about people because they let them in their way. And also Jason said at a certain point during his speech that nothing changes, nothing changes wrong. So these type of messages that are kind of negating something else, are they a risk in terms of competitions or not?
It depends on whether your message is negative or whether you use it as an example, a negative example, right? What Jason did was negating my statement. I mean, that's up to the judges. Some judges will say, oh, he strayed off the topic. Other judges will say, well, that's very brave. I mean, you don't have to agree with the topic so long as you stay on topic and then also elaborate on why you do not agree with the topic, because it's an opinion you can have, right? The other thing is when Daria talks about negative elements in her life, I was actually going to say, what you did reminded me of James Joyce, and I will tell you why. My favorite quote in the world is from A Portrait of the Young Artist by James Joyce. If you don't know James Joyce, famous Irish writer, he's dead.
Spoiler alert.
He's written books that nobody wants to read, but he's also written books that people can read, that everybody can read. But in his book, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, he has this quote where he says, he gives the definition of the difference between pity and terror. And he says, pity is a feeling which arrests the mind in the presence of whatsoever is grave and constant in human suffering and unites it with the human sufferer. Terror is the feeling which arrests the mind in the presence of whatsoever is grave and constant in human suffering and unites it with a greater cause. What Daria did was first, my suffering. I had an operation. Many people can agree with that. It unites us with the human sufferer. Then she talks about Ukraine. We all know about the war. Most of us feel incapacitated to do anything about it. So this unites us with a greater cause. So maybe you didn't consciously think of it, but in your build-up, you went from the general, people inspire me, to the personal, my story, to a universal story, Ukraine, back to your statement, people inspire me. And this, in my opinion, is literature.
Yeah.
This is not a table topic anymore, right?
Yeah.
Daria, when is your book coming? So, if I would have been in the jury, you would have had more than 100 points.
Yeah.
And she also ended with a positive message.
Exactly.
She brought it home in the end in the closure. And I also want to highlight Daria is also a superpower of how poised she is, how clear she is when she presents her topic, her smile. And one thing you could have enhanced, I think, you can practice this at the next Postmaster meetings, is use the stage a bit more, because you were there and you didn't budge. But parts of your structure you can also support with, firstly, secondly, thirdly, in the order of appearance of your audience, not in yours, obviously. So that's one little nugget to think about. And I'm not sure the Zoom attendees saw much of you, correct? They're there, they exist too. And this year in our district, all the contests will be live, no hybrid. However, in the past, we've had to juggle hybrid meetings and judges on Zoom. So you had to include them in your eye contact. Yes. And it's hard to look at a lens, right? Yes.
We'll go here. In English, we say sprinkles and sparkles. In French, we say foufou and tralala. Up to you, what you choose. These are, you could say, the finishing touches, the cherry on the pie, the dots on the I, the what do we call it? The best parts, the going the extra mile, all these type of things that you can bring in to give, and people have been using them. Most people who were doing exercises here today were already using them. For example, the circular reasoning that Daria had at the beginning, she makes a statement, she ends with the same statement. Very nice, you know, to close it up. Or Jason using this well-known expression about the present is a present, so it's a gift. All these type of things help to beautify your speech. And they give this extra leverage with the jury. So, Mikaela, you talked about the triad. I heard a number today.
I remember the years and years and years. See, I don't remember everything about his speech, but I do remember that much. So that was a memorable part of that speech. And if you're an evaluator in the contest and you had 10 contestants, one after another, that's one thing that's going to make the speech stand out versus others.
Yeah.
Being chased by the bear.
And Daria used a triad about people, that she saw that there was still peace and love and understanding in the world. So that's also something that's a triad. So you can use it in the shape of a repetition, the same word 3 times, or you can use it in your structure, if you have a structure that has 3 elements, or you can use it in a phrase where you say characteristics of something. Something is this, that, that. A triad works really well because for some reason beyond our control, the human brain is wired to remember triads. This is why, in biblical terms, the God appears in 3 shapes: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In other religions, this happens as well. I'm not so familiar with other religions, but we often see this in history or in literature or in expressions in our culture. For example, also Socrates, his book on rhetoric, ethos, logos, pathos. 3 things, not more, not less. We remember triads. And it helps us also to think and structure our speech. Now, analogy, simile, we heard some today?
Definitely heard some. Well, we first of all heard some from Ovidio online.
Yeah.
When he made the analogy or the simile with Monopoly. Life is like a game of Monopoly. Other examples that come to your mind?
I think Suja went a little bit in that direction with her bookshelf and comparing herself to her bookshelf. I'm trying to think others. Does anybody remember?
Suja called herself a cup of wisdom.
Yeah,
Yes,
that was a
perfect.
huge one.
Yes,
That was
she
good.
did.
Yeah.
A cup was
Was
always
willing
empty.
was willing to go empty to be filled again.
Yes.
Okay.
Many-
I know sometimes I'm like, I said that? Yeah. This is when the creative juices flow and you have sparks of genius during contest.
The metaphor is like a simile analogy on speed. The simile analogy is when you say, for example, life is like a box of chocolates. And a metaphor would be life is a box of chocolates, right? When you don't compare one thing to another, but when you just use a concept to depict another concept, which is very close to what Ovidio did with his Monopoly, right? Then we have the hyperbole. I do not recall.
Like exaggerations, you go like, you go really out there in the exaggeration of your story. It has a purpose of bringing a lot of humor to your story. You can think of a complete disaster situation and exaggerate all you can about that. And in the storytelling, which I'll link as well with the evoke the senses, there's a saying we have here as well. It's like show, don't tell, or don't tell us you were tired. Describe us the situation and make us understand that you were tired, sad, happy, you name it. So don't name the feeling, describe it and make us come into your story by doing that. So evoking the senses, describe how you were out in the countryside and the smells, the sounds, the touch, all that you felt. Make us live through your experience and your story. That's really powerful.
One of my favorite poets actually starts with a beautiful hyperbole about a child first day at school. He says, 1,000,000 billion miles away from home. Billion doesn't even exist. but it's a triad, million, billion, willion. And it is a hyperbole because he's not even a million miles away from home. He's probably tops, he's 5 miles away from home, right? That's the circle that parents will go with their children. But he exaggerates it. It's a hyperbole to just express, of course, loneliness and feeling lost and things like that. Alliteration. Does anybody know what it is? Alliteration.
Same letter.
Using the same letter twice.
Or more, or several times.
You can use it in conjunction, so two words, or you can also use it to oppose. And in spoken language, it works also when in writing, it's not the same, but it sounds the same. Right versus wrong. Right and wrong, spelled differently, sound same. Also, the best in the business. Yeah? So when you use the same letter or the same sound at the beginning of a series of words.
Sprinkles and sparkles.
Sprinkle
Bingo.
Extra points again.
And we have a really good metaphor for you in the following slides.
Yeah. The anaphora, Mikaela, what's an anaphora?
The anaphora was when you repeat one word and repeat with so love is beautiful. Love is everything. Love is the universe. Stupid example, but the point was I repeated the word love as an anaphora and the repetition to just really make that message really sink in that love is kind of important.
Yeah. Then, yes.
Just, I'm curious already, how to develop these kinds of things?
Practice, practice, practice.
Triad, alliteration, right there.
And anaphora also. Mm-hmm. Practice more, practice better, practice here, practice there. They practiced in the fields, they practiced on the sea.
I think Suja was looking for shortcut.
Well, you start with one. You start with one that you can easily remember, like the triad. Triad is one to begin with, right? You start with one, and once you get this feeling for using the triad, you can, and you already use the metaphor. So people who feel, let's say, people who think in images very often find it easy to use metaphors because that's the way their brain works. So don't hesitate, use it, right? Use that.
And the hyperbole, I think you were going in all dimensions at some point, and then made a joke it was only 3 dimensions. But I think
Yes. Actually, yes, with your 360 degrees of Suja, that was a hyperbole.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So sometimes we use those inadvertently also, and that counts. Quotes. You can quote Shakespeare, you can quote Socrates, you can quote your mom. I have on numerous occasions quoted my mom or my grandmother. They were very wise women. Oh, my mom is still alive. She is a very wise woman. And so it doesn't have to be a very eloquent or famous international person. You can quote your school teacher, right? Everybody has in their lives at least one good school teacher. Some are lucky and have more than one good one, but we can quote, you can quote your boss, you can quote people from your team, right? So quotes are always good to use. These help. Facts and figures.
Which reminds us in the grading scheme, there is something about using examples and facts or numbers to support your message. This can help you also score some points. So get some of the basic facts right. World population, things like that. That's usually nice to like plug in. Some people love numbers. You're gonna hit that little sensitive chord if you plug some numbers with those numbers people.
But get them right. I don't know if any of you watched the German news. There was quite a bit of a scandal last week because one of the ministers who is responsible for what's it called in German? Employment amongst others, had the average income of pensioners completely wrong. When asked on a television show what she thought the average pension was that people get in Germany, she said, I don't know, I think it's around 2,000. It's 1,200 for women and 1,300 for men. If you use facts and figures, use the right ones. There is going to be, especially in a Toastmasters audience, you're bound to have nerds who know those facts,
Yes.
right? So get your numbers right. If you don't know your numbers right, don't make anything up.
And make it playful as well, you know, are equal rights important would be the topic. Well, in a world population of about 7 billion, 50% of those are women. So
Over
chances are.
50%. Because women live longer.
Because what?
Women live longer.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you can argue that in some countries, the 50-50 is not quite right.
Humor.
Excuse me.
Humor always works. We saw it with Ovidio. It was a very simple trick. When he went with his Monopoly and in the game he talks about jail, he just thought, you know, in real life, jail, and people laugh. But yes, people go to jail. It exists, right? So this can be used. What can also work as humorous is when you get a topic and you turn the topic around. It can be humorous, right? My winning table topic in German, the topic was, I get up early in the morning, I look into the mirror and I say to myself. When I got the topic, at first I thought, oh my God, I never get up early in the morning. And then I thought, why don't I share about that, right? And I talked about how it's very dangerous to get up early in the morning because sleep is very important to keep staying young. And everybody is afraid of turning into their mother or their father, the women to turn into their mother, the men to turn into their father. Then I gave a little anecdote about how one day I had been partying, the next day I got up, I had a hangover, I looked into the mirror and I said, Dad! Everybody laughed, I won the contest, right? I did not talk about the topic at all.
The contest.
No. Yeah.
It depends on the delivery. Humor will get you points with the jury. The judges do give points for if you can make, because humor is, let's say, a prime example of engaging with your audience. An audience does not laugh at jokes they don't like, right? Sometimes people want to force something on stage, or they'll say something that they think is funny. Funny is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's a very, how would I say, very analog tool. It's not digital. It's not funny or not funny. It depends on the audience.
A safe way to plant some humor is self-deprecating humor. Really easy,
Like
really effective.
when you get up in the morning and look like your father. Self-deprecating. What did I do?
You do the next.
But it's time to do some practice. So I see some people who haven't spoken yet. Can I get a volunteer over there, please? Come on.
These have
I have them.
You're much better.
That's why you need more practice.
So this is the part where you bring it all together, right? The message, the structure, and the sprinkles and sparkles. No pressure. Yay. Jen, hi. I hope. Jen. Life balance, Jen. Life balance.
Life balance is the topic everybody always talks about nowadays, because supposedly we don't have enough life balance. I don't know if you know this, but in Germany there's even a word we have Freizeitstress, which if you're not familiar with German, it means you have stress even in your free time. And I think that is a great, I think if there's one word that kind of symbolizes life balance being out of whack, it might be if we have Freizeitstress. Because how did we get to the fact that if we're over, even in our free time and our spare time, we're getting really stressed out? So I think for myself, I know I've definitely had, and I catch myself, I don't know if you guys catch yourself sometimes as well, where I get stressed over, my actual free time. And I like to just really, for me to have more life balance, it really is about making sure I enjoy myself. So if I enjoy myself more, then I find my no matter what I'm doing, my life actually feels back into balance. So that is really what I think on life balance is really about having joy in everything that you do and not getting too stressed about
what am I doing? Am I doing it at work? Am I spending it in my free time? So that's what I have to say on my phone. Nice take on the, I learned a new word today, Freizeitstress. Thank you for expanding and enriching my mastery of the German language. Feedback. What came to your mind when you heard this take?
Does it count like a quote? Like, does anyone know German? Like, this is a kind of quote or no?
I think it would be a question to the audience in an effort to involve them. Which, by the way, and I'll get right into that, it could be an easy one of like, who here knows what that means, or who here knows a feeling of being stressed by, you know, the free time stress. That could have been a nice moment to pause and get people to respond. Oh yeah, I know what you mean about that. We're all Toastmasters, so of course we know what you mean about that. What else did you observe? I thought your voice and your command was really nice and smooth. It was really lovely to follow your story and where you were going with the topic. I think that I might have missed there was a bit more of a storytelling to your structure, so to speak. And yeah, you missed a couple of chances to like really engage the audience. So you went on a rant to be like, yeah, I don't know if you know what it means. Like, slow down, just bring them in with their hearts in their head, you know. But you did do a nice opening and conclusion. So like, you know, that was your message. You stated clearly what your opinion was about the topic, like balance. It was a really open topic, so you could go anywhere with that. We'll send you a little bit of a playlist of winning speeches. That was one of those topics, life balance. The winning speech was hilarious because she went in a complete hyperbole of crazy running around, so like, you know, exaggerated mode of like trying to juggle everything in her life, and it's quite humoristic. So it's a nice way to take that topic as well. What else could we talk about, life balance?
Yes. I think there was expectation. I mean, I kind of subconsciously felt like, oh, life balance, okay, it's gonna be funny. Because we are all like, you met that expectation by mentioning flights and stress. And this is some topics have that kind of.
I mean, you could have a different take on it. If you're like a scientist, a psychologist who actually happens to study the topic of stress and cortisol levels on people who juggle too much, and have a call to action that it's important to balance your life, and because you will live longer, things like that. That's another way that to score points. Of course, you'll perhaps miss out on the humor, but at least
you are a surprise element.
Yes.
I mean, that's
yes.
also what.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What I really liked about Jen's delivery was how she kept on using I statements. I think, I feel, for me it is. And I think that this makes your delivery extremely personal, which is very good for the pathos, of course, but also for the ethos, even if it's not a scientific development that you did. You didn't use any academic information or anything like that, but it adds to your credibility by making it really about yourself and by stating an opinion that a lot of people will be able to agree with, because you're, without generalizing, you're giving your personal take on the topic, and you make the audience follow your stream of consciousness here. So that was really well done. Yes.
I think I have one feedback and one question. So feedback is, I think you have a really good word language on the stage when you talk. And the question is, Freizeitstress is what I know, it's the stress that you would have free time. So you don't want to have free time, you want to plan everything. Or is it like actually having stress in free time?
Freizeitstress means the stress of let's say the stress of planning and organizing your spare time. The Germans also have another word that goes hand in hand with Freizeitstress, and it is Freizeitgestaltung. This means if you have spare time, it has to also be just as planned and organized and structured as when you go to work. 8 o'clock we get up, 8:15 we brush our teeth, 8:30 we have breakfast, or maybe in the opposite order. So the idea behind it is really this modern need to also be busy in our spare times so that we can post nice stuff on Instagram, on that we can talk about our adventures when we were in the jungle of Colombia, all those type of things. So that's Freizeitstress.
Do you notice the cliche, exaggeration, hyperbole she did about Germans and how that worked as a humoristic parenthesis? Next and final example, probably, of this sprinkles and sparkles. Over there, I haven't seen you much. Jorge, do you want to?
Oh.
Come on.
Oh.
Come on.
I was trying to apply the lesson that you gave about you just need to make sure you're not the worst out there.
Just as a practice environment. Tell me what you like. Okay. Jorge, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Jorge.
Thank you very much. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That's been common wisdom so far, I would say. We've been hearing that and reading that. It's something that, yeah, I can remember having heard as a kid already. But that's about to change, isn't it? I mean, if you have been hearing now the news and the latest developments about AI and generative AI and how the images and videos can be transformed, we're not going to be able to trust images for much longer. So I think maybe this is one line that will not endure the test of time for much longer. I was just getting shared actually one scam. I'm from Peru, getting a video from authorities. So a news person actually inviting all of the population actually to invest in a product in a state-owned company to make absurd gains. For now, luckily the accent that they put on this news person was an Argentinian. It was the news of Peru. It made no sense, but the development is going into a world where we're not going to be able to trust images or videos for that. So I would like to end this topic now with a question mark. If we are not able to trust pictures or images or videos, what are we going to be able to trust? Thank you.
Feedback.
I thought it was a great story. It made, well, as if it was prepared. It was a real storyline, and it wasn't something that sounded at all improvised. It seemed like there was a real plan, a roadmap, and right from the beginning to the end.
There's definitely a red thread that was easy for the audience to follow. So that logos part, check. The emotional part as well, check, because you bring in topics like Gen AI and basically the concept of trust. You're playing with our emotions here, the warm, fuzzy feeling of trust, but the fear of Gen AI.
Ethos. And he seems to know what he's talking about. Exactly. What do you do for a living? Yes. So
finance.
Somewhat, yes, exactly. It's going to also make an upheaval for the financial world. So it seems to be something that you have been putting lots of thought into.
The video was, it's a true story. I just received it a couple of days ago.
And see, that's, yeah, Christopher, you have some feedback as well to share.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, the ending was particularly strong. It hit me in the face. And first, the announcement. Let me end by asking a question. Boy, my ears perked up immediately. And then, a very strong message. If we can't trust images, what can we trust? Wow. Strong.
Are you going to be able to sleep tonight?
I'll send you a picture.
What Christopher is also referring to, and I wanted to bring this up in the context of the structure, is that yes, we have the structure. We talked about the opening, the body, and the close of your speech, and you've done this as well, where you led us all the way. You had a structure of your, by the way, in the scoring of the judges' ballots, you had the statement, will not stand, this will not stand a test of time. And right after that, you went with the example. So this thing of like theory, statement, example, that's really solid for the ballot sheet. So use that. And what Christopher is also referring to is the so-called signposting. When you're developing your speech, it's really helpful for your audience to have those keywords like firstly, secondly. I would also like to mention, to conclude, this gives the audience a visual map, a roadmap of where you're going. This is Google Maps on a speech, So use that because it's really helpful to make your audience follow your train of thought. Yes.
When I heard this question, I thought this topic would be philosophical.
I thought so too.
But like he used his knowledge, like he used his AI to explain about the topic. So,
yeah, you went in a very interesting direction with that picture because yes. And you were contrarian about that, which is nice because you played with that topic. You didn't go for the easy answer, like, of course, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Everybody knows that. No. You took a different angle to that, which was refreshing.
I like also the expression of survival test of time.
Yes.
And I think there was humor, and you could have expanded on it. Like, I'm from Peru. There's something about being Peru and having such a thing happening. I guess that's what you were communicating, and I got it. But I think you could tell a bit like being from Peru, you got whatever that is being from Peru with, and then give the example of what happened. That could have, I guess, given more laughs to you. But I laughed, so I totally could expand on it.
Exactly.
And thank God you have a very friendly face, otherwise nobody would be able to sleep tonight.
And by the way, great voice, great projection. That was really easy to follow your message. So that supports your.
And the friendly face actually reminds me of a very important thing that I think we're going to talk about in our wrap up. Is obviously prepare. You can be prepared for an impromptu speech by practicing, joining a Toastmasters club and doing table topics every time you have the chance, right? So that's very important. But what I want to talk about is when you're on stage, yes, yes, it is important to breathe and not to panic, but very important also, smile. A smile is something that also projects to the audience and to the judges. It gives at least a semblance of confidence, even if you don't feel very confident. A smile can make you look confident. And interestingly enough, scientific research has proven that people who smile will actually start feeling more confident because for some reason, the muscles in our face, facial muscles, are linked to the chemistry in our brain. And if we smile, the brain thinks, oh, we must be happy, we're smiling. So do yourself that favor and smile on stage. And then you can connect with your audience, project confidence, and start feeling more confident. So it's a really good one. Buying time. There is a myth about buying time. I will tell you. Christopher, nod if you agree, shake your head if you disagree. People are very often falsely explained that when they participate in a table topics contest, they have 30 seconds to think. This is not correct. You will never find it in any rulebook. Christopher, have you ever heard about the 30-second rule?
I have heard about it. However, if you don't start speaking, the timers will not start the watches either. However, you can't stand there for 10 minutes thinking about a table topic either.
Exactly.
Keyword is in a reasonable amount of time in the rule book.
So what I always advise people, you definitely wait until the table topics master is sitting, because so long as there's a moving object, the audience will watch the moving object. Right, so you wait until the table topics master is sitting.
Thanks for calling me an object.
I was talking about the table topics master. We are at best table topics mistresses. So you wait until the audience has the time to also pay attention to you, right? And yes, you can buy time by repeating the topic, and you have definitely the time to take a breath, look the audience into the eyes, and then begin. You can also buy time by beginning, and I think, Daria, you did this. Dear fellow Toastmasters, most honored guest, Mr. Table Topics Master, Madam Table Topics Master. So you buy time by doing these things too. Yeah? And then you get started. I think on the first idea, we already saw, if you have an idea and you begin, and immediately you come up with a better idea. The first 10 seconds, nothing is lost. You saw how a video did it. I encourage you to watch that video again, to dissect it, to really look at what he did, because his table topics delivery was a winning speech, and it was extremely well done, right? This is a person who has extremely high amounts of experience. However, it is not perfect, right? So look at that, and you can learn from that. And yes, do you want to develop on some of the other ones?
Yeah, think of your audience. What's in it for me from the point of view of your audience? In a Toastmaster audience, we're a pretty diverse group, whether it's nationalities, gender, anything. You have to be a little bit mindful of that when you present your point, your message. Think of the same at the office. You will have a different group of people over there. You may know them better than an unknown audience. So think about what messages may land well or not so well with your audience. So KYA stands for know your audience. So think about that when you deliver your speech. Of course, you want to be authentic. Of course, you want to make your point. But you can be polite about it, and how you present it is equally important as what you present. Time management. I think one of the
I think we should not talk about time management.
Right.
I'm looking at the clock.
Yeah.
We are the worst examples of time management.
But there is no
But we have
what I mean is,
Divish.
it's
Look at
part of the,
Divish.
and this is the practice part. You start calibrating your or pacing your speech by practicing and seeing the red light and just memorizing. Okay, I was really like a few minutes over time. Think as well of the fact that when you're in a contest, you'll have some nerves, you'll have some laughs perhaps. The laughs will slow you down in your message delivery. You need to take that into account, because when you see the red light, you don't know whether it's 3 minutes or 3 minutes 20. You may not have seen it go off in the beginning, and it would just be really sad to be disqualified for going over time. So be mindful of that. I know that by experience. Yeah, get creative. So think about the game you played yesterday or what you love to do. So really engage the audience with that. And personal experience, super powerful. And of course, practice, practice, practice. We'll send you the slides. And of course, there's a couple of tools that you can take home with you. Just prepare mentally before a Toastmaster meeting, before a contest. Florian Muck, whom some of you may know, is a Toastmaster in Barcelona, has a great web page with lots of tools and tricks. These are the famous figures of speech that we mentioned. Some of them are described also with examples over here. So kind of read them and say, okay, this time I really want to try to place an anaphora in my speech. And if that's all you manage this time, that's already a win. So try to tackle it from that perspective. Playlists. If you're going into a contest, I love listening through videos of past winning speeches. The topics will be really diverse, but you will pick up some flows, and especially in the timing, etc. It might just get your creative juices going and may give you a spark of inspiration. Who knows? Practice, practice, practice. There is such a thing as a real board game, also in the format of an app called Rhetoric, the game, co-developed by Florian Muck, we've just mentioned, and John Zimmer, another famous Toastmaster in Geneva. And they have great topics and twists to each topic that you want to tackle. So you'll get a topic, but you have an additional challenge, like you have to do it by call to action, using a quote, things like that. So it's really good practice. It's like going to the gym, but for table topics. And
they have a family version, so if you have children, you can play it with your children. They have a business version, so you can do it at work with your team building experience. You can use that. It exists in multiple languages, so there's no excuse to not install the app as we speak, because it exists as a board game. It also exists as an app, right?
Get playing.
And we don't have the VP education here, but it's a great idea for a special meeting. Georgia, I'm in the spotlight again. Oh. Believe in yourself. I lost many contests before I won my first contest. Nobody begins at the top, except Kumar, of course, as we remember, if you were here last week. But other people, us normal, regular mortals, we begin by just stumbling through it. We begin by practicing, by doing this again and again and again. And even if you think right now, I'm not even good enough to start in the contest, do it. Because what the contest gives you, apart from the possibility to win, you always have the chance to win. If the topic is something that fits you magnificently, you have the chance. It also gives you the experience of standing differently in front of that same audience in the club. The stakes are different. There are judges watching you. You will get another type of adrenaline. And if you know Divish, he can tell you for hours and hours about how highly addictive adrenaline is. So if you don't want to go to drop off a mountain for getting your adrenaline, you just stand on stage. To this day, nobody has ever died on a stage. So it's a very safe way and a healthy way to get your adrenaline levels up, right? So I encourage you all contact Ranjit, the members of this club, contact Ranjit tonight and tell him, I will be in the contest. I will be in the table topics contest. I want to try this. Because the experience, even if you don't win, even if you don't make it to second place or third place, the experience is something that nobody can ever take you away. And it will make you stronger for the next contest season, and then stronger even after. And one day you will be the one who's winning.
I call this the rising tide. It's my metaphor because I won at club and then lost at area. Then I won at club and area and lost at division and so on. So every time I got to a bigger stage, it came with its new set of challenges and stress levels and audience, etc. And it was nice to have this base to rest on to move up that experience and to learn along the way. In the next episode, we can actually do a training, what we call the taming of the butterflies. Because Ineke and I love that quote that the butterflies will always be there when you go into a contest. The point is you want to teach them how to fly in formation. And there are some tips and tricks on how you can do that. And that would probably be the topic of our next educational workshop.
We'd also like to encourage you to make us better by going to this feedback form. It just takes 2 minutes. Give us a bit of feedback. Next workshop, we promise we will use the feedback and be better.